It's an absolute pleasure. The great Eddie Olczyk is on the call. Stanley Cup Final on TNT out here in Las Vegas for games 1 and 2. He's in town. He's like, boys, I can come in studio on Friday. We're like, oh,
time change from the Midwest is okay. Mitch, Pauly, great to see you guys.
Too,
Usually I'm sitting on the other side there watching you guys from home. So you guys do an amazing job, and it's nice to be here and nice to be in Vegas for the Stanley Cup Final again.
Yeah, no kidding.
Again.
Twice in 6 years.
Yeah, amazing.
Incredible.
Good to see you guys. Thanks for having me.
Same here. You're far too nice. Let me, as a former player, and we had this conversation, talking about the NBA Finals last night with the Rust versus the Rest. Same thing kind of applies here. The Panthers haven't played since last Wednesday.
Yeah.
So what does that mean overall to you?
I would even say more so in watching the game last night in Denver. That's a double-edged sword there for Miami. They have a tough series, right? They had a chance to get the rest, end up playing on Monday, travel, and then you got to worry about the thin air, which is, I lived it, and it's difficult. It is like you have people doing all these studies. Is like, I think most hockey teams feel if you get in and get out, don't try to get there the day before, have a practice, because people that I've talked to, it feels like it's going to take at least 36 hours or so so, you just don't want to be, I mean, look at you, you feel like you need the oxygen tank all the time. But in saying that, I would be a little concerned just because of how much of a heater Florida had been on and how well that they were playing, and especially Sergei Bobrovsky, because he's been, I mean, you would argue, and I don't, Matthew Tkachuk would certainly be at the front of the list, but Florida wins. It's obviously coming down to one of those two guys, and depending on how, I would assume Bob plays in the final, that would end up being the caveat on him being the MVP if they can find the thing. You can practice all you want, you can train all you want, but as you know, that game speed and the reading of the place to me is the difference. So I would just look at it as, I would be a little concerned going into game one. They're probably going to need to get their skates under them and see what happens. But it certainly would be a problem for me.
That's a great point about Bobrovsky, because you're hot. He's 11-2, and you're thinking
he's out of his mind.
Yeah, you're playing. Yeah, I know you're playing every other night.
Right,
now all this time off,
and then all this time off. Right.
Great point.
So that to me would be some. But that's the way it is. Would I rather have the 9 or 10 days off than having just played a game 7? Like, look, it looked like after game 4 or game 5, it looked like Vegas was going to be in a game 7, right? So all of a sudden they would have been playing on Wednesday night. You want to get rid of the team when you get the opportunity. So it just happens to be, they were hoping, I'm sure, that the Vegas-Dallas series ended in 4 or 5 so that they could have started on Wednesday night.
Well, Mitch asked me earlier, are you good with Aiden Hill?
He's played very. He's played very well. Yeah, he had the one bad game there in game 4. He gave up the one short side goal.
That's a bad goal, but right.
Even in the regular season, though, Pauly and Mitch, they did the job. I mean, they used what? They used 18 goalies this year. I mean, give Bruce Cassidy some credit here. He's done a hell of a job. I'm happy for Butchie. We played a little while in Chicago back in the day. When we were at the Blackhawks, and Butchie's a great guy, and I'm so happy for him. And great to see him land on his feet after doing a great job in Boston. Gets dismissed in the summer. He was only out of work for about 3 days, 4 days, and then he had the relationship with George McPhee, who had hired him in Washington a bunch of years ago. But it's really fun, and I think it's good. I think it's going to be a real entertaining series, and you got characters who have a lot of character that are going to drag their teams into the battle, and it's going to be a lot of fun. But look, take the goaltending aside, because if you don't get it, you know that. If you don't get it, you're not going to win. That's just the reality.
He played it.
Oh, I know.
In the elite level, as we all know.
I was on that World Wide Web thing trying to read some stories on some of those great high school games back in the days. Yeah. So no video though, right? That's
no video.
In black and white, anyway.
That's right. No video. We just got the pictures of the
long hair and the mullet.
Oh my God!
And he's 80 pounds overweight.
Yeah.
So I think we all look at the Panthers. I know I do. I just look at the record like, well, they swept the Hurricanes. They lost once to the Maple Leafs, and they came roaring back against the Bruins. Incredible run. But was it really that easy for them? I mean, if the puck bounces a couple of different ways against Carolina, that's not going to be a sweep.
No. But I would say this though, Mitch, is that I would argue, and I got into this. I would say it was an interesting and fun argument with a friend of mine the other day. At the start of the season, if you would have said pick a team and say that they had to play Boston, Toronto, and Carolina to get to the Stanley Cup Final, you could argue at the start of the season, everybody thought Boston was going to struggle this year because of the massive injuries that they had at the start of the season.
Sure.
New coach, the whole 9 yards. But they were certainly a top 10 team in the league. You could argue those 3 teams were top 10 teams in the league. When the playoffs started, without a doubt, you had Boston, you had Carolina. Now, of course, the question marks with Toronto because they couldn't get past the first round forever, right? But you could argue those 3 teams, top 6 to win the Stanley Cup before the playoffs started. I would make that argument.
Yeah.
So Florida's legit. You're right. Bounce here, bounce there. No Bob to start the playoffs, and you see what he's done. You sit there going, where in the hell was he before this?
Right.
Why did you have to, I don't say wait to put him in, but they decided to do that, and he came in, and I mean, he's been lights out. So Florida is an interesting team because I don't think they're great defensively, but they do have the ability to play a couple of different ways. You want to play 5-4 games?
True.
We'll play 5-4.
Yes.
You want to play 2-1 games? We have the confidence we can play 2-1 because the guy in goal back there. There's no better feeling as a player. And when I coached in Pittsburgh some 20 years ago, and you could just feel it. When you can play on your toes, when you can play downhill as a skater, knowing that, if I make the bad read here, we might give up a 2-on-1 or a 3-on-2, or maybe we give up a breakaway. I'm okay. The guy back there is going to bail me out. When it goes the other way and you're playing on your heels, you look like your legs are in baggage claim. Like you have no chance. You have absolutely no chance. And you're not going to be playing on your toes. And that's how Florida plays. Like I said, they're physical. They can play offensive. They got some highly skilled guys up front. And they've got some big defensemen and aren't afraid to try to separate people from the body. Just like Vegas. I mean, Vegas's defense is big. They're mobile. They like to jump into the play offensively. I think the matchups in the series are pretty interesting.
As nuts as the 11-1 run is, and coming back down 3-1, it's 7 of the last 8 have gone under, and how they're winning these low-scoring games. Will Vegas have success on the power play?
I believe that they can. The layoff has something to do with it. Let's just stick with game 1 if we can. But I had done on TNT. We did every game in the East Final. Carolina had some looks. Like they were making the next right play. I look at Vegas and go, when Jack Eichel gets a puck on a stick, 99.9% of the time he makes the right play when he gets the puck. Same thing with Stone. Carolina either just couldn't score or they just missed the opportunities to make the next right play. I think Vegas has an opportunity to cash in on the power play, and we know that if you can cash in on a power play and specialty teams, I think that might be something that's interesting. I was looking at some props on the way in, and when I was traveling, I saw specifically about the power play. You asked about it, Pauly. I saw Mark Stone. Like when Vegas's power play, he's a great retriever. He's not the greatest skater. I can relate because I wasn't a great skater when I played, so I can relate. But he is so intelligent. He's so smart. He gets to a lot of loose pucks. He keeps a lot of plays alive, and he makes his living in front of the net in the blue paint. I saw his power play numbers. Over a half a point on the power play in game 1. I saw it was just shy of plus 300. I looked at that and I went, whoa, you talk about value and you talk about if you think their power play is going to cash in, there's a pretty good chance Stone is going to be in there. So that was just one prop that I saw that I thought was pretty enticing. I saw that at DraftKings, I think.
That's a great observation by you. Because it feels, right, if they're going to score a goal on the power play, somehow, some way it feels like that guy is going to be the center of it.
And they're going to get, I'd say, Mitch, they're probably going to get at least 70% of the power play, right? So going to be out there for $1.15, $1.20, whatever it ends up being. So again, depending on the game and how it all plays out. But Mark Stone's just one of those guys. I expect him to have a big series. I just have this feeling. I mean, that's why they brought him here and gave him the Brinks truck and and coming back from what he has.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.